Wisconsin will close out its regular season tomorrow as they take on Penn State, going to serve as senior day, and it's a big class that's going to be honored. Among them, center Stephen Crowell, but a 4-year starter and recently became just the 8th player in school history to win at least 100 games in their career. Coach Greg Gard recently talked about what Crowell has meant to the program and this year's team.
He's just been very consistent, and he's continued to, improve in small increments, and he anchors us in the paint. So just happy for him. He's played on a lot of good teams, and obviously you get 100 wins, you're doing a lot of things right. He's been a big part of that.
Helped earn a double bye at next week's Big Ten. That includes tonight's game with Illinois taking on Purdue and Boilermakers Blues, and the Badgers tomorrow. They will get the double bye again. It'll be the Badgers and Nittany Lions tomorrow. Tip is at noon. Turning to the Bucks, they will host the Magic tomorrow night at Fiserv Forum. Milwaukee's won 8 of 9 to get to a season best 11 games above 500. Tip tomorrow is at 7.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
You're grateful for all the ways technology can connect us. Unfortunately, there are online scammers who want to take advantage. Malicious viruses, phishing scams, and identity theft are more prevalent than ever. That's why Rural Mutual includes cybersecurity protection as an option on every policy.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
Well, Wisconsin held its pro day this morning in Madison, featured 9 former Badgers working out, including safety Hunter Wohler and tackle Jack Nelson. The Badgers going to get spring ball going next Thursday, the first of 15 practices that will culminate in late April. And the NFL free agency period just days away. The 2-day negotiating period begins March 10th. With this Wisconsin Sports Zone Network update, I'm Zach Heil, Print.
The negotiation part with a number of teams, God rest his soul, Ted Thompson. When I worked with Ted in Green Bay, and I was really the point man for the Brett Favre negotiation. So, big time negotiations like that. Yes, I've been through the communication and trying to keep things as tight as you possibly can, and trying to be as professional as you can, and through the whole process. DK has requested a trade. We are entertaining that, talking to a ton of teams, taking offers, seeing what that looks like. First and foremost is doing what's absolutely best for the organization.
This is where Wisconsin gathers to talk sports. Packers, Brewers, Badgers, Bucks. The Wisco Sports Show is on the air. Now, here's your host, Grant Bills.
That's Seahawks general manager John Schneider. That interview was sent to me today at 12:30 by Mike Clemens. So Mike texted me, I don't know, like 10:30 today. He said, hey, Grant, I can come on Bill's show today and do a half hour. Right now, during football season, Mike kind of has his regular, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and he comes in here Tuesday, right? There's a schedule. But sometimes in the off season, it's a little more touch and go with Mike. If there's news, he'll come on or whatever. He texted me, if Bill has room today or you guys need, another voice on the show, I can come on at 1:30. And I said, well, let's do 12:30. That works a little bit better. And I didn't know if he was sending cuts or not, because sometimes Mike, you guys know this, he'll join. Sometimes he'll have a bunch of audio, and sometimes he'll just be like, I just want to chat about this. And I love that about Mike. He sends me an email 2 minutes before I'm supposed to call him, and there's 4 sound bites, and it's John Schneider, the Seahawks general manager. And I said, oh, this must be from the combine. This must be from his end of season press. This audio was from yesterday. And it blew my skull. Well, it blew my skull 2 different ways. Number one, that Mike was able to procure this audio. Like, Mike, well done. Thank you. This is awesome. This is great to have on the show. But 2, why is John Schneider doing a media availability, a general manager in an NFL team that's not Jerry Jones? Why is he talking right now? It blew my mind. So I started digging into it. Apparently, John Schneider just does a show. And I found it on YouTube. It's the John Schneider Show. On the YouTube account is Seattle Sports. I assume that it's like connected to a radio show. I don't know. It blew my mind that a general manager not only does weekly radio hits or somewhat routine radio / YouTube, what is radio anymore, right? It's on the radio, it's on the internet, it's everywhere. That there's a general manager who does routine appearances, let alone a routine appearance 2 days after His star player requests a trade. Can you imagine Brian Gutekunst doing that? And look, you listen to John Schneider in this cut. Let me play you cut number 1 here. Or I guess this is cut number 2. Not that it matters to you. It's just how Mike labeled it. But he's asked, can you confirm that DK Metcalf wants out of Seattle? And when you listen to what he says here, listen to his words, he sounds like this is straight out of the Green Bay Packers 3-ring binder that's been passed down from the early 90s. This is John Schneider talking about it.
Obviously, DK has requested a trade, and we are, entertaining that. We are talking to a ton of teams, taking offers, seeing what that looks like, and yeah, here we go. I mean, you always have to do the thing to understand here is that, our responsibility to, Jody Allen, the 12s,
the owner, the fans.
First and foremost is doing what's absolutely best for the organization.
I mean, that sounds like it's straight out of the Packers 3-ring binder that was printed and corrugated in the 90s, and it hasn't changed since. Like that's Green Bay. That's Ted Thompson, right? That's the Packer way right there. We got to do what's best for the franchise. We got to do what's best for the fans, the 12s and the owner, Jody Allen. In Green Bay, of course, they're one and the same. It's owned by the fans. So that's a little bit different. But I just couldn't believe that a general manager in the NFL, because you got to think about it with the Packers. Brian Gutekunst speaks when he has to, speaks around the draft, beginning of training camp, end of the season, the combine. But even this year, and I can't help but think this is intentional, Brian Gutekunst speaks at the combine, and then we learn the very next day, that Jair Alexander's on the block. That's because Goody didn't want to address it, I would imagine. I have a hard time believing it's coincidence. Maybe it is. Maybe this is my radio mind, making something out to be something that it's not, making a mountain out of a molehill. But the Packers went out of their way to have Goody speak and then drop the news. John Schneider's just out there doing media. It blew my mind. So maybe that's not something that you find interesting. Maybe that's not something that you care about. Maybe that's just me because I do radio and I also produce audio. Like that is gold, let alone general manager audio in the midst of a very public trade request. Just mind-blowing. So shout out to Mike Clemens getting us that audio. I had to put that in the intro tonight. This is the Wisco Sports Show. My name is Grant Bills. Happy Friday. Fins up. I want to begin with DK Metcalf tonight, but if you're burned out on that topic, it's fine because we don't have to stay there for the rest of the show. It's completely and totally wide open tonight. Free phones Friday, I like to call it. I'm a big fan of alliteration. So I'll take your calls. You can go from Badgers to Packers to Brewers to the NHL. The trade deadline was today. I won't have much to add, but you're more than welcome to take the show there if you'd like. I am also packed from nostril to rectum with amazing audio today from NFL insiders talking about Metcalf and Trey Hendrickson and all these other players that are becoming available or could become available through a trade. I have baseball audio. I have college basketball. A wild quote from Tom Izzo last night that I want to get to. I have so much. So wherever you want to go tonight, I guarantee that I have some soundbite or some audio clip to go with it. I'm really excited for the next 2 hours, but I do want to begin with DK Metcalf, okay? And if you will allow me, if you will indulge me for just a couple minutes, I'm going to cosplay Colin Cowherd here for a couple of minutes because I've noticed a little bit of a phenomenon, if you will. Maybe it's not a phenomenon. I've noticed a trend among Packers fans over the last couple of days, and it surrounds DK Metcalf, and that's what I want to address to begin the show. But I'm going to do so using a Colin Cowherd style analogy or vehicle here. So men, you know this. Women, you might know this, but allow me to explain. Single men, when they are looking for love, when they are looking for a date, when they're out at a bar or a restaurant or a social gathering and they have their antennas up, right? Because some men are single. They're like, you can't tie me down. So you go out and maybe you're not looking. But I'm talking about single men when they're looking to find someone. We will grab onto the first thing we see. All right, you could be sitting at a bar. There's 20 people in the bar and some random person could walk in and sit down at a bar stool that just happens to be in someone's line of sight and the lights shining down. You're like, oh my God, that's the most beautiful girl I have ever seen. And that single man in a span of 5 minutes at the bar with a woman he doesn't know and has never talked to will sit there and go, she's really pretty. Wonder if I could talk to her. And then over the next couple of minutes, the man will create this fantasy world in his head about how, well, imagine if we dated. And imagine, I wonder what my parents would think of her when I introduce the entire lifespan. The man will go through the entire lifespan of this woman, dating, marriage, kids, the whole shooting match. The man does not sit there and think, she's kind of cute. I should go talk to her. No. The man will say, she's kind of cute. Maybe I should go talk to her. And then over his beer or whatever drink, we'll sit there and ponder. Like, this man will go through the entire relationship, marriage, kids, family, and that guy might even, in the span of a couple of minutes, break up with this woman who he's now dating in his imagination. For example, you're sitting there, she's pretty, I should maybe go talk to her. Man, imagine if we were a couple, everyone's going to look around and say, wow, how did that guy get that girl? My mom, dad would be so impressed. I just know they're going to love her. And then we'll get a house thinking we could have kids. I bet she likes dogs. She looks like a dog person. We'll play through this fantasy. And then what will happen is a man will enter the bar, walk over to the woman, and it will become clear that those two are an item, right? Now this fantasy, this dream is dead. And this man who's never talked to this woman hasn't even gotten out of the bar stool. It's only been a couple of minutes. Hadn't even seen this woman before a couple minutes ago. This man now has to endure a breakup for a relationship that's never happened. And he'll sit there and go, oh God, just be crushed. And then the man will reconcile this. He'll rationalize this in his head and saying, you know what? She's actually, now that I look a little more closely, I'm not sure. She's not actually that good looking. And now that I look at a little closer detail, bad teeth. And what was that? Oh my God, I just heard her laugh. Oh, not good. You know what? Actually, I dodged a bullet. Breaking up with her, I dodged a bullet there. Never talked, never went on a date, never interacted. But a man will go through an entire relationship from beginning to end, from first sight to breakup, in a span of 5 to 10 minutes. And this woman never knew it. Never knew. This is how men operate. And the same man will come back to the same bar tomorrow night and go through the exact same thing. From love at first sight to breaking up. This is how men operate. Not all men, but I just think this is kind of a common shared experience among men. This is kind of how we operate. And I've seen this exact same thing take place with Packers fans since last Friday, when we got the first tiny little bit of news that DK Metcalf could be available. And you know what? One team to watch, the Green Bay Packers. And on Friday, Packers fans started thinking, it's a pretty good wide receiver. We've been kicking around the idea that the Packers need a true number one. He'd fit the bill. I mean, shoot, I wanted the Packers to draft DK Metcalf, and they didn't. I mean, he could fit a need. Talk about a deep threat. Whew. Christian Watson heard he could slot in and be that field stretcher, be that vertical presence that could help Jordan Love and the Packers offense kind of crack the code against man defense. Whew. Well, Seattle, I mean, they can't ask the world for him. He needs a new contract. It's not like he's 24. He's 27, but he's still a good player. I mean, I'm interested. Color me interested. Oh, and I can see it. And the Packers fan, myself included, they started to picture what it would be like in the green and gold, just like a single man would envision. Oh, what if we dated? I bet we could go get dinner here. Oh, my parents are going to love her. We were right. We're going through all these stages in our mind. And then on Monday, we kind of learned what the Seahawks and we're interested in for trade packages. It became official. It was reported officially that DK Metcalf has requested a trade. And now it's really starting to feel real. I might go over and talk to her. Yeah, I think I might. You know what I'm going to do is I'm going to play a song on the touch tune and see if she reacts. I'm going to fire, romantic song her way. And that's kind of what we've been doing all week, kind of flirting with the idea, kind of playing out this fantasy in our head. And then this morning, we get a report from Diana Rossini. A couple of details about DK Metcalf. And I can actually play you the audio here. This is, she's on the show that Mike Golick and Mike Golick Jr. do together. And I can't remember what it's called, but while we're listening, I'll go find it to make sure that if you want to go find it and listen to more, you can.
There's a lot of teams interested, but after I put that out, I started to get texts from those.
By the way, what she's referring to is the trade compensation, I think was reported first. The Seahawks are looking for a 1 and a 3. So that's what she's referring to.
There's a lot of teams interested, but after I put that out, I started to get texts from those teams like, yeah, right. Way too much. Look, good for John Schneider and the Seahawks for asking for a lot right now. We all know that can change. That's just the starting asking price at this moment as they're trying to gauge, okay, what's the real interest here? How can we make this work? And then, there's always a scenario where they keep the player. That could always happen as well. My sense from the DK side to it, he obviously wants to get paid. He wants to play somewhere where it's warm it was something I was told. Warm weather. He wants a more stable quarterback situation. So these are things that I think will play into some of the decisions here when we see if the Seahawks are able to really get what they want here for a player like DK, who, you look at those numbers, that's an AJ Brown trade number, like we were just talking about. So I don't think they land on that. I just think that for right now, that's the asking price, and so we'll see if they lower that a little bit to move their top receiver.
So that's Diana Rossini on Golic and Golic. It's on the DraftKings network, or Gojo and Golic. You can find it. I feel like I've given proper credit now. If you want to go find it. So he wants a stable quarterback situation. He wants a fat new contract, which we already kind of knew. And he wants to play in cold weather or warm weather. He wants to avoid cold weather. He wants to play in warm weather. Wouldn't that be funny if a player wants to be traded? Actually, I want to go somewhere cold. It'd just be kind of funny. Because it's the opposite of what we normally hear. I want to play in somewhere warm, right? Somewhere in the South, somewhere on the West Coast. Nobody ever says, I want to play in the Northeast. I want to play somewhere where it's cold in the Midwest. So Packers fans, we heard this morning, and this is the equivalent to the man entering the bar. And we clearly see that this woman who we're interested in and have fantasized this relationship, a house and kids, and we haven't just fantasized going up and talking to her. We've built this world in our mind. And now enters a man, and it becomes clear, oh, she doesn't actually look single. Well, you know what? She's not actually that good looking. You know what? She seemed, there's two men over there. Seems like a loose woman. I'm not interested. Nope, never mind. We're broken up. This hypothetical relationship has come crashing down. And this is what Packers fans are experiencing. Oh, DK Metcalf wants to play in warm weather? He doesn't want to play for a true winter like Green Bay. He wouldn't even fit here. Even if he wanted to come here, I'm no longer interested. I don't want a diva in the locker room. I don't want that energy. I don't want that juju in Green Bay, in the Hudson Center. You know what? We don't even want you. We've completely reversed course. We've gone from getting married, settling down, to having kids, to, you know what? I'm not even going to bother going over there. You detest me. I'm no longer interested. Packers fans, we have engaged in a relationship. We had a family. We bought a house. We broke up. We suffered this tragic divorce. Nothing's happened. How have we changed our opinion so much on a player who the role has not changed? The status has not changed. How have we gone on such a roller coaster with a player who hasn't even played here? He's still just hanging out in Seattle. The situation has not changed since Friday, and Packers fans have gone from middling to red hot to middling to, you know what? Screw him. I don't even want him. What is this? It's a fascinating phenomenon, and it very closely mirrors how men look for women until eventually we talk to one of these women, and then, that life that we, considered and fantasized so many times, it actually just happens. That's how men operate. I don't get it. Packers fans, I still like DK Metcalf a lot. When he says, well, I want to play somewhere warm. Oh, okay. Well, $30 million a year and a quarterback that doesn't suck. How about we start there? And I don't get when football players are like, I want to be on the West Coast. I want to be somewhere where it's warm. Okay, well, as an NFL player, your career is short. You have a small window in which you can earn the most money possible and win the most games and accomplish as much as possible. Easy for me to say, but I roll my eyes anytime a football player is like, I want to play on this coast. I want to play somewhere where it's warm. As a football player, you check into your city, your market where you play in August or late July, and you're out by January. Okay? Early February at the latest, if you make the Super Bowl. And God, wouldn't that be so miserable if you had to hang out in Green Bay for a couple of extra weeks because you have an opportunity to win a championship. I don't get when football players get bogged down in that stuff. I'll be honest, I understand it with NBA players because NBA players have to live and exist in the market in which they play. From when does training camp start? Does it start in September? Season starts in October. You're there from October all the way through April or longer if your team is in the playoffs. And that's winter. That's the winter. So if an NBA player who's got all this money and all this status, all this clout, doesn't want to live in Milwaukee, I'm like, okay, as a Bucks fan, I'm bummed, but you know what? I get it. Football players? Dude, you got a game every week, and you're in and out by early January. Most places in the United States are a delight in the fall, in the late summer, And okay, if you're playing in Green Bay, yeah, it might get a little chilly in December, but guess what? By the middle of January, you're done. And you can go live wherever. If you want to go to LA, if you want to live in Phoenix or Texas, you're out of there. You never have to buy a house. You can rent a really nice apartment. You can drop in and you can drop out. It's not hard. So I think DK Metcalf, he says, I want to be where it's warm. Okay, well, let's see what $30 million and a half decent chance to compete will do. Let's see if we can change that. I'm kind of balking at the whole warm weather thing, but I know a lot of Packers fans were triggered by that. And they said, you know what? But we don't want you. We don't want you. We don't want a toxic player like you, which I think is a little funny. And that dynamic, that process that Packers fans have gone through kind of mirrors how men look for dates. And if there's one process that you don't want to follow, it's that of a young hormonal man. That's not a rational creature who makes good decisions. Let's take a 3-minute break. Free Phones Friday. If you want to talk more about this, we can get into Trey Hendrickson, who's available. We can talk college basketball. We can talk Brewers baseball. They had a game rained out in Arizona today. Crazy as that sounds. Everything is on the table. I will follow you and where you want to go and what topics you want to hit. 608-321-1670. To your phone calls next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Good for John Schneider and the Seahawks for asking for a lot right now. We all know that can change. That's just the starting asking price at this moment as they're trying to gauge, okay, what's the real interest here? How can we make this work? And then, there's always a scenario where they keep the player. That could always happen as well. My sense from the DK side to it, he obviously wants to get paid. He wants to play somewhere where it's warm it was something I was told. Warm weather. He wants a more stable quarterback situation. So these are things that I think will play into some of the decisions here when we see if the Seahawks are able to really get what they want here for a player like DK, who, you look at those numbers, that's an AJ Brown trade number, like we were just talking about. So I don't think they land on that. I just think that for right now, that's the asking price. And so we'll see if they lower that a little bit to move their top receiver.
That's Diana Rossini today on Gojo and Golic. Just kind of outlining some terms and some things that she's hearing about what exactly DK Metcalf is looking for. And I don't doubt that Seattle will try to accommodate him as much as they can, I think. Teams typically do that. That builds up goodwill with players and with agents, and I just think that's good business for franchises. But, I want to go somewhere warm. I want to go somewhere with a quarterback. Okay, well, maybe give us like one thing, and we can try to make that happen. What do you want? You want a mint to be on your pillow when you arrive in town, too? Rick and Spencer texts in, and I think this is sage advice. I'm not calling you old. I don't know if sage advice means old. Sage kind of makes you sound old, Rick. I'm not calling you old. He said, Grant is a lifelong Packers fan. I never get worked up over trade rumors or mock drafts. You will always end up disappointed. Mock drafts, I agree, because there's hundreds of players, and it's such a crapshoot. Trade rumors, I would agree partially, but I think there are certain players in certain times that you can get worked up a little bit. Also, this is Sports Talk Radio, so naturally we're going to get worked up. Also, I'm not the one who made this comment unprompted.
We need to continue to ramp up our sense of urgency.
Sense of urgency. I also didn't say this.
It's time that we start competing for championships.
That was Brian Gutekunst. I didn't write stories about how this is year 3 of a year 3 plan. That didn't come from me. I'm just listening to what I'm being told. So my antennas this offseason have gone higher than normal. And that's Goody's fault. That's the Packers' fault because they got us all hot and bothered. 608-321-1670. I believe this is Clemhead Mike. Clemhead, is that you?
Hey, Grant, Clement, Mike. How'd you know? You saw my text.
Yeah, I saw your comment on the live stream that you're on hold. How you doing?
Oh, good. How are you?
Good. Happy Friday. Good energy today. I don't know what it is. Maybe there's a lot going on with the NFL, and I have some other random things that I'm excited to talk about. Dale Jorgensen's coming on tonight. That's a Friday treat. Sometimes I'll arrive at work on Friday and be like, oh, I'm burned. I just need to get to 6 o'clock. Today, I'm like, it's Friday. Let's crush this day with enthusiasm. Or maybe I'm high. I don't know.
The analogies are flowing. It's really good. Yeah, I forgot the one thing about the girl across the bar. She got a cold sore. So
she's got you say she's got a cold sore?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it exactly. We're like, hey, DK Metcalf, he wants to go somewhere warm. Screw him. He's a diva. I never wanted him in the first place.
Well, yeah. If I was a player, I'd go to a state with no state tax. That's just me, though.
That's a big part of it. I think that's why the Northeast is probably victimized most of all. Like, why would I go to the Patriots? It's cold. And Massachusetts has a millionaire tax. Like, at least in California, if I go there, I'm going to get taxed, but I can walk down to the beach. You know what I mean? Like, right. That's why if I was a Pats fan or if I was in the Northeast, I think that's especially difficult.
Yeah. Well, the reason I called is we all know that you're the master of the analogy. And your analogy, you and I had we agreed on an analogy 2 years ago when Council was still managing the Brewers. We said, you and I both agreed on the same thing. We would blow up the entire Brewers farm system. We'd trade every prospect, everybody every single player in the farm system, and trade every player we had, and we would pay whatever it took to win a World Series. Remember, I was going to spend a year at the Stanley Correctional, and would do whatever it took to win a World Series.
Yeah, I believe I might have suggested trading Jackson Churio too. We don't, Yeah. We can look back fondly. Don't go back and check the tapes. No need.
Yeah, no. But whatever it took, I said, so this year, I think whatever it takes to win a Super Bowl, trade everybody. I mean, trade all the draft picks. I don't give a crap. Don't do like Ditka did in '99. Trade every draft pick you have for Ricky Williams and plus two picks in the 2000 draft. But trade every draft pick. I don't care what it takes. I don't care about draft picks. Whatever you need, free agents. Blow the whole wad this year and go for it like the Rams did 2 or 3 years ago. Just do it. I don't care. Draft picks are an unknown quantity. I don't give a crap.
Yeah. Well, and what I think is promising, and this is why it's difficult to cross sports. That's a great call, Clem. Had nice to chat. Have a great weekend. Because baseball, football are very different sports, right? So trading all of your prospects in baseball puts you in a very different spot than trading some draft picks in football. And like, you can trade a lot of picks. It's hard to really trade all of your picks. You know what I mean? And the next year you got to, that's what's great about football is you can get aggressive and you can really force the issue. But like I've been reminding you with the Rams, if you have good internal process and you trust your coaches and you trust your evaluators, getting more aggressive and trading some picks away doesn't mean that you're going to go into the dark ages for 5 years. Doesn't necessarily mean you need to go in the dark ages at all. It tightens the margins a little bit and it ups the degree of difficulty. But in baseball, if you're a small market team and you blow all your prospects, those chickens will come home to roost and you're going to suck for a while. Football, that's not necessarily the case. So 2 players that we're talking about right now, DK Metcalf could go for let's just say a second and a fourth. Okay. That's supposed to cripple our franchise for 5 to 10 years? No. It doesn't have to hurt at all if the Packers play their cards right. Or today we learned, and I'll play this audio at some point tonight, that the Bengals are looking for like a late second, early third for Trey Hendrickson. You're telling me that one pick, well, if we go too hard, that we're going to have to pay for it. I don't think so. That's one pick. Like, it's a lot easier. I will sleep better at night going all in football than I would had the Brewers gone all in. And no need to go back and check the tapes. I'm pretty sure I said that they should trade Jackson Churio, but we don't need to go there. That's fine. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Hey, Grant. Fins up. It's Uncle Packer.
Hey, Uncle Packer. What's going on?
Hey. It's just been such a whirlwind week with all these trade rumors and stuff. And, earlier, all we had was 2 defensive ends. Now we've got like 4. Bosa's available. Hendricks is available. Wow. I mean, I just hope out of the 3 or maybe 5, there's also a guy from the Titans was released. That was like a pretty good defensive end.
Harold Landry. Yeah, I think is the name. Yeah.
Now, I mean, I just hope we get somebody. I hope we just get somebody at the defensive end position. And I'm really excited about Hendricks. It would be wonderful. With Gutekunst, the first year he was our general manager, he brought in the Smith brothers and that offensive lineman Billy Turner.
Yep.
And somebody else, and that was a pretty good year. And then last year he was amazing. So I just hope he just does it another time and gets us, a couple amazing free agents. And I believe the time is now.
Well, and you don't have to believe it. They told us that, Mike. Like, this is Goody again. I keep harping on the soundbite because I didn't say this. Goody said this.
It's time that we start competing for championships.
It's time that we start competing for championships. It's time
We need to continue to ramp up our sense of urgency.
These aren't things that we're making up. This is what the organization has told us, and this is what's been communicated to fans and owners like us.
We should make that into a shirt and wear a Packer banner because that's he told us that. And I hope that we're going to do something outstanding. I just want this whole thing to start rolling, and it should be soon, right? We should be able to make moves on free agents. They're doing it already, but I hope we get something soon. And as for an offensive receiver, I would love if we could get Metcalf. That would be great. Or I'm still a big fan of Cooper Kupp. I'd like to see him come 1 year to Green Bay.
Yeah, and Cooper Kupp could be an option. There's a lot of guys. Christian Kirk was released. Appreciate the call, Clement. Have a good weekend. Christian Kirk was released, but then it was one of those times where it's like, we're releasing this guy unless anyone wants to call us last minute and give us a pick. And the Texans did. So Christian Kirk's off the board. But there's plenty of receivers. There's just lots of players available. Legal tampering begins Monday, and I think the new league year in free agency begins next Wednesday. So, no, we won't have to wait long. And things can be announced beforehand. Like, even if they don't process trades or signings until later, they can announce stuff. So we're very much in the thick of it. 608-321-1670. And I want to talk more about Hendrickson and the idea of the Packers acquiring and paying him, because seems like, well, that's going to cost a boatload. Well, I mean, good players cost money and picks. Yeah. But I don't think that's as insane of a move as some Packers fans may be thinking. And I'll explain and give you an example coming up after the break. But first, one more call. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Grant, happy Friday. Fins up. Can't wait for the weekend.
Fins up, vagabond. I'm doing well.
Hey, I got a question for you. So I've seen a lot of comments on cost of receivers, how we're going to spend so much money. So my question for you, Grant, is Jordy Nelson was a damn good receiver, right? If the Packers could sign Jordy Nelson for $10 million a year, why can't we sign DK Metcalf for $10 million a year, Grant?
Why can't we get the game? So we all want a wide receiver 1, right? Why can't we get that guy and also not have it cost anything? Is that what you're asking me?
Well, Grant, I don't understand you kids, right? Back in my day, I paid for college with no loan, and I bought a 2-bedroom house.
Yeah.
Just working at the local McDonald's.
You used to be able to afford eggs, too.
Yeah, I don't understand. Like the Packer fans are just losing their mind this week, and it's not just Packer fans, right? Of course, it's just your average NFL fan that's sitting there with the nachos and the cheese sauce all
and
over them,
owners,
right?
not just fans, also
Just
owners.
Not understand. Well, yeah, those. I think fans are probably have a better grip on reality than owners.
That's probably true.
See Jerry Jones.
That's probably true.
Fans just have no concept that the NFL salary cap has gone up 40% in 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
That means when you look at the Christian Kirk deal at an average of $18 million a year that was signed in 2021, right? That deal, if we do the same, that's about $25 million a year, right? So if you're freaking out at the $30 million number, in 2022, we saw our first ever $30 million receiver, Tyreek Hill.
Mm-hmm.
In going into next season, there's already 6. After free agency, I think there's probably going to be close to 10. Within the next year or two, there's going to be 15 to 20.
Yeah, and
so
Jamar Chase is probably going to get 35 in the very near future. You know what I mean? It just keeps going up.
There's already a receiver at 35. It's Justin Jefferson. I think Jamar Chase might push 40 because of how much the salary cap's going on. So my question for Packer fans, when you think about DK Metcalf specifically, or whatever receiver the Packers do bring in, as we hope, just think, if they're a top 20 receiver, $30 million is not outside of the realm, because they're in a position where they know a team wants to pay, especially if that team thinks they have a Super Bowl window. Again, I've said this all week long. I don't know if the Packers are there, right?
Yeah.
I don't believe in Jordan Love's legs. But if you're a Packer fan out there that thinks, and for the love of God, if you're a Packer fan out there that bitched about this for 10 years under Aaron Rodgers, don't put away the pocketbook now, Brian.
Well,
this is the time to spend the money. And I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully you get something this weekend. Have a good weekend, Grant.
You as well, Vagabond John, and I wasn't trying to run you off the air, but I want to make this point before I forget it. If you were someone that thought you need to do more to surround Aaron Rodgers, need to go get him a weapon, need to spend more, need to draft more, right? That's probably true times 2 or times 3 now, depending on how you feel about Jordan Love. And I know Vagabond John has his reservations. I wouldn't say that I have reservations about Jordan Love. I just don't think that he's Aaron Rodgers, which I think is very reasonable. I don't think that's insane. But guess what? With lesser quarterbacks, you need more talent, right? Aaron Rodgers, Jordy Nelson and others, thinking Devontae Adams and others around Aaron Rodgers when he's very clearly one of the best or possibly the best at times quarterback in the league, that's reasonable. Like, hey, man, you're amazing. We'll give you a great O-line and one great wide receiver, and we'll try to build a running game, and we'll try to work on the defense, but, you got to carry some of that water because you're Aaron Rodgers. Fine. But if you thought for years they need to surround Aaron Rodgers with more talent, you definitely need to think that now, because Jordan Love needs more help than Aaron Rodgers ever needed. So, especially if you're someone who has your reservations about Jordan Love, all the more reason to invest a little bit heavier at wide receiver or weapon, generally speaking, around him to give him some help. So, Vagabond, to your point, I think it's probably more reasonable, or it's probably a better idea now than it has been in recent history to invest and spend a little bit more. And I couldn't agree more. Yeah, DK Metcalf, $30 million. Well, Justin Jefferson, you're correct. I looked it up, is already making 35 per. So Jamar Chase is probably going to eclipse that. Right? That's how this works. So you're not even setting the market at 30 million. I know that number gives people sticker shock, but the cap's going up. There's more money. And again, I will tell you, we wanted for years, we got to get out of cap jail. Got to get Aaron Rodgers money off the books. We got to get out of cap jail. We got to get back here. We're finally out of cap jail. So what has this all been for? What have we been working toward? To go be able to afford high-level players to try to win a Super Bowl. Again, not my words, it's his words.
We start competing for championships.
He said it, not me. Don't shoot the messenger. We'll take a break. We'll come back. We'll continue this discussion. Again, it's wide open today. Free Phones Friday. So if you want to switch to hockey when we come back, I'm fine with it. You pick the lane. But if no one completely comes in here and switches gears, I do have a couple bits of audio about Trey Hendrickson and where the details lie and what it would take to acquire and, that kind of thing. So that's kind of, you can expect that coming up, but really it's wide open.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 5 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 4 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
In terms of trade compensation to secure Trey Hendrickson, talked with a couple of executives via text earlier, and it actually came back almost unanimous, where it would be the Khalil Mack-like trade. So go back to when Khalil Mack was dealt to the Chargers. The Chargers got Khalil Mack. And really, it was about a 2nd-round pick. There was a 6th-round pick involved in there. But for all intents and purposes, let's just say it's the player for a 2nd-round pick. Well, Khalil Mack was also already under contract. because Trey Hendrickson, no matter where he gets dealt, will certainly have to get an extension. You're probably going to lessen the trade compensation. So let's just say it's a third round pick. Go back to last year, Brian Burns got dealt. He was a high second round pick, but he also got paid. He's also much younger than Trey Hendrickson. So I think probably a fair, you can call it conservative estimate, but probably a fair estimate is if the Bengals can get a high 3, they would love a low 2. But at the end of it, if they are going to deal Trey Hendrickson, it's probably going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of a high 3 in order to ship him out.
That's Jonathan Jones, CBS Sports. He did a 10-minute interview on CBS Sports HQ earlier today, and it's just loaded with details about this whole thing. Compensation, teams that might be interested in Trey Hendrickson, why Cincinnati is looking to move on from him. And I have other sound bites. Maybe we'll get to them before the end of the show, but I play that one first to highlight, Trey Hendrickson, guy who, I don't know, had a pretty good season. 17.5 sacks, just like last year when he had 17.5 sacks, 8 the year before, 14 the year before that, 13.5 the year before that, at least 2 or 3 forced fumbles in all of the last 4 or 5 years. Yeah, that guy who's 30, what do you think it takes to acquire him in a trade? Got to be, multiple premium picks. Oh, Cincinnati's looking for a late second, early third. That's pretty manageable. Now you have to pay him. And maybe there's some of you out there, Packers fans, who are like, I don't think they should spend any money. I don't think they should go out in free agency and address pass rusher. Okay, if you feel that way, fine. But I think a big portion of Packers fandom likes the idea of someone like Khalil Mack, okay? 34, but it's Julius Peppers 2.0. Nearly 10, 11 years later now. Bring him in for 2 years, end of his career. You're going to pay him a lot of money, but probably a shorter-term deal. Both team and player kind of realize this is the last big hurrah for you, and you're going to try to win at a high level and try to really have a special, kind of final year or two of your career. Well, Khalil Mack is 34, and you're going to have to pay him a handsome contract anyways. Well, why not get Trey Hendrickson, who's 4 years younger, and all it's going to cost you is a late second, early third? Okay. I mean, that's a pick. That's not nothing, but it's not a second and a fourth or a second and a player and a contract. It's a contract, which I think most are willing to give to a player like Khalil Mack anyways. So you pay a little bit more and you give up a pick, but you get a player who's been nothing but outstanding and he's 4 years younger. I think that could make a lot of sense for the Packers. This has been a great week. Possible edge rushers to be acquired, wide receivers to be acquired. I am like a pig in slop. I am dumping in tall cotton. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Hey, Grant, it's Tom in Lacrosse. I'm laughing at your comments. A pig in slop. That's pretty good.
Have you ever taken a dump in high cotton or at least peeing in high cotton? That's great. It doesn't have to be a number 2. Oh, you go up there on the Hickson trails, the rolling meadow. You just lean back and relieve yourself. It's pretty great.
I'll refrain from commenting on that, but I will say I'm with you. I feel like Jordan Love needs help. We got to spend some money. I mean, and it doesn't, if it's big, if it's DK for a big number, okay. But I think there's some bargains out there to be had too. Sure. So I just feel like if we can pick up, some guys to help the D line and wide receiver and I don't know about cornerback, but possibly cornerback. I mean, I'm pretty optimistic the Packers are going to be pretty active this year. I feel like.
I think that there are cheaper options at wide receiver. And if you were to tell me Chris Olave, like the Packers get Chris Olave, great. I'd be thrilled. I think some Packers fans, and I'm not saying this is you, Tom, but I think there's some Packers fans who are like, Devontae Adams, DK Metcalf, that's cost too much. There are better options. And then the Packers go get a cheaper option, and that same fan whines. That's a half measure. You know what I mean? So I just want to make sure Packers fans are policing themselves and the kind of things that we're suggesting for our team.
Yeah, I think Devontae, and I don't know his contract situation. I know he's got a big cap number, but I would think they could probably negotiate some stuff on that.
Not anymore. They cut him, so you can sign him. You can sign him to any contract that he or team wants.
Done. Okay,
yep, it's done.
That's what I wasn't sure of how that all works. So yeah, I mean, I would love to see Devontae come back and finish his career in Green Bay. Big fan. I think he'd be a huge asset to that wide receiver room.
I think he would be too. And I think he fills a need. I think he fills a different need than DK Metcalf, but he's not going to cost you picks or a player like Romeo Dobbs. So these are the things that we're having to balance, Tom. Are there any other wide receivers that are cheap or anybody else that you're like, that I'd actually go a little bit more of a bargain and I think I could get the same thing? Is there anyone else?
I had, I was looking this morning at the receivers. I was reading an article on ESPN, and now I can't remember who it is. He was with the Cowboys for a while. Amari Cooper.
Oh, sure.
And I'm like, okay. I mean, take a look at what he might be able to bring. Stephon Diggs. I don't know if Stephon Diggs would be a decent option. They were kind of thinking he might just, stay in Houston. But, someone that maybe it's not going to be a huge deal possibly. But, something like that. But, I'm just optimistic they're going to be active. On a side note, since it is like a free for all Friday, I don't know. I did send you a message. I don't know if you got it.
I did.
Really good friend of mine.
I think I'm interested. Yeah. So you have a friend from Lacrosse Central who's on the selection committee?
Yeah. And it's so next week I said, hey, we chat every now and then, and it's just always fun to listen to him talk about the process. And I said, I'd love for you to be on this guy's show that I listen to at night. And he goes, I got to do it before next Tuesday because they basically I call it sequestered. And all they do is watch basketball. He's like, he goes, I'd be open to doing that. So he'd probably have to do it on Monday, but message me back and I can try to connect you two.
Yeah, and I was just reading your text. So this guy's a bigwig in the big sky. I appreciate it, Tom. Sorry, your message gets buried sometimes, but I will reach out to you. I think that would be really cool, either on this show or on Bill's, because I think it would be an interesting look inside how selection takes place. And you guys, hey, can you help tip the scales of the Badgers? Let's get them in Milwaukee. Take a couple-minute break. I'm going to text Tom back. Maybe we can set something up for early next week. Dale Jorgensen is going to join us on the other side. He was a little upset, if you missed yesterday's show, that J.R. Radcliffe was booked around his time slot. Didn't even take his time slot. He just didn't. He's like, I don't want to follow J.R. Don't put someone else. He said, let my reports breathe. I said, okay, well, let's go later this week. I don't know what his reporting is on. We're waiting for the WEAC, for the Division III playoffs to start. The WEAC tournament finished last week. He told me that he has begun looking into, I believe his words were, the fall of a once proud program in the WEAC. So we'll see what he's got planned. His report will be back on the other side of this break, and then we'll wrap up hour number 1 of the Wisco Sports Show next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Nice backdoor cut here from Charlo with the two-hand slam. We're tied at 14. Great backdoor cut, and Charlo throws it down the Colfax kid.
Intercepted on the play, and that's a pick six for the Eagles.
Leitzinger needs some help. We'll go to Fox for the alley-oop. And the throwdown from Brody Fox. It's 27-20 Blue Devils.
And now with a WEAC update, it's Dale Jorgensen of the Nakusa Register.
Where were you when the Berlin Wall came crashing down? I was coming off my stint as a White House correspondent for the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette and beginning my book tour, Fort Wayne to Fortunate Son, Tales from the Reagan White House. The third title in my trilogy of political memoirs following the 1964 Profiles in Porridge, My Breakfast with Nixon, and the 1975 bestseller, Beg Your Pardon, Reflections on the Nixon White House. Actually, if you're interested, I still have some copies. Amazon.com refuses to sell them, but I have some in a box in my garage. Text Grant's toll-free show telephone line, and you can pass that information along. Anyways, there's a reason I bring this up. Everyone remembers where they were when the Berlin Wall fell. I wonder if we'll all feel the same someday about UW-Whitewater. Once a proud WEAC powerhouse in football, basketball, and baseball, and I remember when Craig Kashan was doing commercials for them on Fox Sports Wisconsin. Yet this last fall, the Warhawks fell to UW Stout on the gridiron and fared no better on the hardwood this winter, finishing 5-9 in conference play. General Secretary Gorbachev said in '86, and I remember it well, that, quote, Chernobyl made me and my colleagues rethink a great many things, unquote. Now, they say that history repeats itself, and one can only wonder if Whitewater Director of Intercollegiate Athletics Ryan Callahan is experiencing something similar all these years later. For game updates and details, as well as snowmobile trail conditions, you can follow me on X at WeActDale. For the Wisco Sports Show and the Conference of Champions, I'm Dale Jorgensen, the Coosa Register. It's the Wisco Sports Show. Appreciate Dale's reporting. There's not a single soul out there doing it better than Dale. Nobody can tie in tensions in the late 80s between the United States and the Soviet Union into the WEAC. Quite like Dale. Appreciate it. You can read his work, the Nakusa Register. No need to look it up. It's a real paper. I promise. He was a little, let's just say journalists can be a bit cantankerous when you step on their toes, tell them how to do their job. Journalists, they a little tempestuous. They can have flare-ups. Game goes to overtime. Oh, they don't like that. Now, of course, Dale's days on the beat are done in terms of, filing stories and covering games. He's more of a freelance guy these days, but appreciate Dale's reporting on Division III athletics all over the state. And as the Division III basketball tournament ramps up, I can only imagine that Dale's coverage will ramp up as well. So you can follow him on Twitter at WeActDale. And if you're interested in one of his books, I have read the one from the 80s, Fort Wayne to Fortunate Son. It's pretty good. I have yet to read the Nixon ones. I'll get it. I didn't know he has copies, so I'll definitely tap into that. I'll let you know how they are. Hour number 2 coming up. I have a piece of Tom Izzo audio that I'm dying to play because I want to talk about it. I have some NBA audio that I mostly want to play just so I can rip it. And we'll also continue to talk about potential Packers opportunities like DK Metcalf, Trey Hendrickson. One more hour for the week. Fins up. It's Friday. Hour number 2 coming up after Zach's update. 2 minutes. No commercials.
This is a Wisconsin Sports Zone update.
Well, Mason Crosby officially retired as a member of the Packers earlier today. Crosby did not play this past season and spent time with the Giants the year before, but the first 16 years of his career were with the Packers after being a 6th-round pick out of Colorado in 2007, became the team's all-time leading scorer, won Super Bowl 45. Though he had opportunities to go elsewhere during his career, Crosby took great pride in playing in and for Green Bay.
That's always known, too, is that I am a culture, team, a relationship guy. That's why Green Bay was perfect for me. I chose to stay here over and over again. Never went to free agency until my last year. I chose this place as it chose me, and God's plan was set in place a long time ago that this was where I was supposed to be, and I'm thankful for that every day.
Again, that was former Packers kicker Mason Crosby. As for his long-term replacement, Packers finally seem to have found it, and Brandon McManus, who signed a 3-year contract extension earlier this week. Turning to the Badgers, they held their pro day in Madison today. Scouts from all 32 teams were in attendance to watch 9 former Badgers take part. Wide receiver Bryson Green put together the best day, posting a 39-inch vertical and a 10-foot, 11-inch broad jump, numbers that would have been among the top 8 for wide receivers at the Combine last week.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
You're grateful for all the ways technology can connect us. Unfortunately, there are online scammers who want to take advantage. Malicious viruses, phishing scams, and identity theft are more prevalent than ever. That's why Rural Mutual includes cybersecurity protection as an option on every policy.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
Well, the Badgers will close out the regular season tomorrow against Penn State. Their seeding for the Big Ten tournament remains up in the air, and the Bucs get to face the Magic tomorrow night. Milwaukee's won 8 of 9. With this Wisconsin Sports Zone Network update, I'm Zach Kyle.
The negotiation part with a number of teams, God rest his soul, Ted Thompson. When I worked with Ted in Green Bay, and I was really the point man for the Brett Favre negotiation. So. Big time negotiations like that. Yes, I've been through the communication and trying to keep things as tight as you possibly can, and trying to be as professional as you can, and through the whole process. DK has requested a trade. We are entertaining that, talking to a ton of teams, taking offers, seeing what that looks like. First and foremost is doing what's absolutely best for the organization.
This is where Wisconsin gathers to talk sports. Packers, Brewers, Badgers, Bucks. The Wisco Sports Show is on the air. Now, here's your host, Grant Bills.
That's John Schneider, the Seahawks GM. I can't believe he was doing media this week, but I guess he has a routine show that he does. And doesn't that just sound like Ted Thompson? Doesn't that sound like Brian Gutekunst? Doesn't that sound like any Packers GM over the last 30 years? That messaging, that wording, that thought process, sounds like it's straight out of the Packers 3-ring binder that Eric on I-90 always talks about, which I actually think is one of the best ways to describe the Packers. They got their 3-ring binder of how they do business. They pass it down from one guy to the next, and they might tweak it a little bit. Brian Gutekunst has certainly added a free agency portion to his binder, but even in his free agency, he still adheres to the principles that have really been carried since the 90s, and John Schneider obviously a part of that, and even referenced Ted Thompson and how he learned to handle things like this when he was working under Ted Thompson with Brian Gutekunst, and of course, Reggie McKenzie and John Dorsey and all these other personnel men who have gone on to hold general manager jobs around the league. Dorsey twice, both in Kansas City and Cleveland. Reggie McKenzie was in Oakland for a while in the Raiders. And he did a better job than most. Certainly did a better job than Mayock, drafting Cleveland Farrell in the top 5. Some people are asking about Dale's political affiliations. Who was it here? Rick. Here it is. Clemhead Mike comments on the live stream. By the way, you can watch the show, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter at Wisco Grant. He said, wow, I didn't know Dale had such a long and distinguished career. So Dale worked as an actual White House correspondent in the 80s. But before that, he was a local reporter. And obviously when you cover politics locally, especially in, I believe he was in Indiana and Michigan. Michigan is often an important state in nationwide elections, candidates come and they visit. So based on the conversations I had with Dale, he met Nixon just a few times, shook his hand, and was able to do some campaign breakfasts with him. And you can read more about them, I assume, in his book that he talked about during his report, Profiles in Porridge, My Breakfasts with Nixon. He then later on in 1975, and this book became a bestseller, especially among right-leaning folks who stood by Nixon even through his impeachment. Beg Your Pardon, Reflections on the Nixon White House. New York Times bestseller. His other two books, not so much. His book in the 80s about his time as a White House correspondent, Fort Wayne to Fortunate Son, Tales from the Reagan Administration. So you can read Dale's published works nowadays, working as a WERAC reporter for the show. And he's not cheap. I'm paying him out of pocket. But it is really nice to have his coverage on the show, especially now as the Division III basketball playoffs will be firing up before too long. What we've discussed so far, Trey Hendrickson on the block, and according to Jonathan Jones, and I'll play this one more time, not going to cost an arm and a leg. And I'll play that cut for you here in a sec. DK Metcalf, the latest there. We've been hearing some teams that could be suitors, including one, Daniel Jeremiah, I believe, on the Pat McAfee show earlier today. I'll play that audio for you in a bit. I'm just going to hit you with some of the latest information that we have on some of these players. I also have some college basketball and some NBA audio that I want to play for you. And anything's on the table. Your calls, please. Open phone lines. You won't have to wait. 608-321-1670. It's a Free Phones Friday, so I'll go wherever you want to go. Here is Jonathan Jones, CBS, describing the compensation that Cincinnati's looking for their edge rusher, who was their entire defense last year. 17.5 sacks in 24. 17.5 sacks in 23. Yeah, he had a down year in 2022. He had a Rashawn Gary level year in 2022, but then 14 sacks in 21 and 13.5 in 20. Here's Jonathan Jones on CBS Sports HQ earlier today saying, yeah, it's actually not going to cost that much to acquire him in a trade, at least if what we're being told here is true.
In terms of trade compensation to secure Trey Hendrickson, talked with a couple of executives via text earlier, and it actually came back almost unanimous, where it would be the Khalil Mack-like trade. So go back to when Khalil Mack was dealt to the Chargers. The Chargers got Khalil Mack, and really it was about a second-round pick. There was a sixth-round pick involved in there, but for all intents and purposes, let's just say it's the player for a second-round pick. Well, Khalil Mack was also already under contract, because Trey Hendrickson, no matter where he gets dealt, will certainly have to get an extension. You're probably going to lessen the trade compensation. So let's just say it's a third-round pick. Go back to last year, Brian Burns got dealt. He was a high second-round pick, but he also got paid. He's also much younger than Trey Hendrickson. So I think probably a fair, you can call it conservative estimate, but probably a fair estimate is if the Bengals can get a high 3, they would love a low 2. But at the end of it, if they are going to deal Trey Hendrickson, it's probably going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of a high 3 in order to ship him out.
So when Trey Hendrickson hits the market, I think Packers fans are like, oh, it's going to cost. I mean, look at what, Myles Garrett's or Max Crosby were thinking, multiple premium picks and this big contract. Trey Hendrickson is one of the most productive pass rushers in the league. He's 30, so he's not a spring chicken, but he's not 34. He's not Khalil Mack. And then we learn, late second, early third, that's it. And again, these general managers in the NFL, this isn't the NBA where it's like, oh, Paul George, you're ancient. Yeah, all the money. Come play for us. You've had injury history. Don't care, Bradley Beal. Come join our team. This ain't the NBA. I don't care how much you did last year or the year before. How old are you now? What's your contract now? Or how much am I going to have to pay you on this contract? It's not the NBA where it's like, take all our first round picks. We just need star power. That's not what this is. That's not what this is. Another report that I heard today, and this, I am not moved by this at all. This does not move me. I do not buy into this. I do not believe this, despite what Daniel Jeremiah said on the Pat McAfee show earlier today. He's saying that, yeah, DK Metcalf actually sounds like he might be headed to New England, or at least that's what everyone says. Take a listen.
Everybody's saying DK to New England, man. Everybody in the league thinks that.
I like that. I like that, DJ. Keep spinning that
wheel. What do you mean in the league?
Yeah.
What do you mean? You're getting texts from people around the league saying,
no, yeah, DK comes available. You just talk to a bunch of buddies around the league, and they're like, that just makes too much sense. They have all the money. They have all the space. They have no weapons. The high second-round pick, what are they picking, like 38, something like that?
Yeah, and they got 2/3.
So
there goes second-round pick DK Metcalf.
Boom, second and third, 2/3, $35 million. Get your ass over here. You can't spell Metcalf without May. Boom.
What What is this show? It's not for me. That's fine. Not everything's for everybody, but I just want the information. Like, just tell me more.
Can't spell Metcalf without
Yeah, there's a Y in there. There's a Y in there. But the quote of Vrabel saying we got compensation, we got opportunity up here. And he's trying to shift that culture. You get DK in there, bought into, not a bad person for Drake May to be able to
What if Drake May, like if you're the Patriots, and I think that they would have competition here from the Chiefs because of the moves that the Chiefs made. The Chiefs now have a hole at left guard, left tackle. Ronnie Stanley makes a ton of sense for the Chiefs to kind of be aggressive in free agency. I would also say New England should be at least having the Ronnie Stanley conversation. You go out in the first week and you give Drake May a left tackle and a number one wide receiver. Now we're cooking.
Okay, I'm going to be honest. There's 15 seconds left. I don't care about the rest. I don't care about Ronnie Stanley. I just care about DK Metcalf. When DK Metcalf became available, or we learned that he was available or seeking a trade, a lot of people were like, New England makes all the sense in the world. They need a weapon for Drake May. They have an extra third, which stems from, I believe, the Matt Judon trade last year when they shipped him to Atlanta, which turned out, what a great trade for New England because they blew anyways. And I don't think Matt Judon was even that good. He wouldn't have made a difference in New England. Whatever. We don't need to relitigate that trade. But the point, that's where their extra third came from. So they have extra picks and they have all the money in the world. Drake May needs a weapon. Of course, it makes sense. I am not moved by this. I don't care how many insiders tell me that the Patriots are going to land DK Metcalf. I don't believe it. Doesn't mean it couldn't happen. Maybe they trade for him in 10 minutes and this clip makes me look like an idiot. Maybe. But based on everything that I've seen and heard from the Patriots balked at acquiring Joe Thuney for a fourth rounder next year. Joe Thuney's excellent. New England's dying for anyone on their offensive line. That line blows. They couldn't block anyone, run or pass last year. And they're trying to just keep Drake May, who I think suffered 2 concussions or multiple injuries last year. He's getting beat to death. Part of that is because he's running everywhere, but the O-line blows. Okay? The Patriots saw Joe Thuney for a fourth rounder next year, and we're like, that's steep. Not sure we can do that. A little rich for our blood. That's the team you're telling me that's going to give up multiple picks and then a fat contract to DK Metcalf? Come on. Really? I don't buy it. I don't believe it. I am not moved by that report. And I could be wrong. I'm just looking at the evidence that we've had, not just over the last couple of weeks, but the last few years. The Crafts, I think for the longest time, they were considered good owners. And for the longest time, Bill Belichick was considered a good coach, too. And Bill Belichick was a good coach. But I think now the further removed we get from the Brady era in New England, I've had to eat some crow on this because I thought Brady was a really, really, really good system quarterback. And I say that compliment, like any quarterback that can fit within a system and execute a system that wins games, that's not a bad thing. It's like an employee that fits well in a company. Like this guy, can you believe this employee? All he does is come in and get along with his coworkers and crank out great results every day. Like a system quarterback. It's used as an insult. I'm telling you, it's not. Okay. Like the Cardinals would die for Kyler Murray to be a system quarterback. I think there are times the Packers wish Jordan Love would be a little bit more of a system quarterback and play within structure and stick to his fundamentals. So I'm not dissing Tom Brady. I thought he was the product of a franchise that knew what was going on, a coach that was brilliant. And now as we get further removed, it's like, okay, Bill Belichick was a brilliant defensive coach who didn't know anything about offense, didn't care about it, but Josh McDaniels handled that for a while until all of a sudden Josh McDaniels goes to take the Raiders head coaching job. And then Bill Belichick is punching in guys like Matt Patricia and Joe Judge to run the offense. Like Bill Belichick didn't care about the offense. Brilliant defensive mind and could win a lot of games and could coach a lot of games when Tom Brady and Josh McDaniels were handling the offense. It's the same with the Crafts. Like I thought forever, Bill Belichick just hates paying veterans. Get them out of there. I'm not sinking money into old guys. I just think the Pats and the Crafts are cheap. So no, I do not buy the idea that the Patriots are going to acquire DK Metcalf. And maybe I shouldn't buy the idea that the Packers are going to acquire him either. But I keep going back to these sound bites. These aren't my words. Nobody made Brian Gutekunst say this.
We need to continue to ramp up our sense of urgency.
Nobody made him say this.
It's time that we start competing for championships.
Nobody made him throw his wang on the table and say those things. No one made Rob Domofsky and others publish stories about this 3-year plan. We're going into 3. It's always been about year 3. Aaron Nagler told us that at the Super Bowl. It's always been about the 3rd year. Everything's leading to this. Okay. So don't blame me for taking a microscope or a magnifying glass to DK Metcalf or to Trey Hendrickson or to Devontae Adams or others. I think there are lots of good options. 608-321-1670, a wide open free phones Friday. You want to talk about whatever. My interest has actually been piqued a little bit by hockey today. So now Brad Marchand, the captain of the Boston Bruins, the guy who was ousted by the Florida Panthers last year, is now playing with Matthew Tkachuk, a guy who didn't McAvoy, who also plays in Boston, didn't he just level a massive hit on Tkachuk in the Four Nations? And Tkachuk is hurt, so Marchand's going to go there now. At some point, they actually play together. Like, that fascinates me. And there was a report out of some Canadian outlet. I can't even remember the guy's name. But I talked to two other people who follow hockey more closely, and they're like, yeah, we heard that. That's a legit rumor. A rumor that Sid Crosby and Brad Marchand were supposed to team up at the trade deadline in Colorado on the Abs. I also didn't realize how long Sidney Crosby had been playing. So hockey is actually, you know what? Hockey's piqued my interest a little bit. I'm far from an expert, but I'm entertained by it, to say the less. Here's more from Jonathan Jones on teams that might be interested in Trey Hendrickson. Again, I said back at 4 o'clock, I am nostrils to rectum just loaded with interesting audio today. Jonathan Jones with some great reporting, some great tidbits on Trey Hendrickson, who's been given permission to seek a trade. Actually, you know what? I want to save the cut on suitors. I want to play you the one. Here he is, Jonathan Jones, comparing Cincinnati to Philadelphia, saying, well, Cincinnati says, well, we can't pay Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and Trey Hendrickson. And then he says, well, look at Philadelphia. They're able to pay all their good players. And I just think this is a great 45 seconds of audio.
You're going to look over from Cincinnati. You're going to look over to Philadelphia, and you're going to say, well, they're making it work. And the Philadelphia Eagles are making it work because they have ownership who is willing to pay and pay guaranteed money. They have a GM who signs guys a year early rather than a year too late, like we just saw with Saquon Barkley, for example, like we've seen with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. The Cincinnati Bengals do not do that. In fact, they don't guarantee money beyond year one for anyone who is not a quarterback. That's not the way to do business in today's NFL, but that's the way the Cincinnati Bengals do business. They are, by and large, one of the cheapest and certainly one of the cheaper franchises in the NFL when you consider how they do contracts.
So the thing about the guaranteed money, they don't guarantee money past the first year. I don't think that that's unique to Cincinnati. I think there are other teams that do that. I think the Packers handle their business that way, right? I think the Steelers do too. And I could look that up. I remember Brad Spielberger. So this must have been like 2 years ago, because Brad Spielberger used to be at PFF. Now he's an agent. He's working in the field that he kind of covered. He was a capologist. He would deal with contracts. He was really good with that stuff, really good analyst at his time at PFF, and he would come on our network. And I remember an interview with him either on this show or Bill's, where he's talking about the way that certain teams structure contracts, and you have to take that into account when looking at free agents and how these things are financially fleshed out. And I believe that the Packers and the Steelers are two teams that don't guarantee money out past the first year. They'll front load it, and they'll make it worth the player's while by giving them a bunch of cash up front, guaranteed money up front, big signing bonus up front. But we're not guaranteeing money years and years and years down the road. So when Jonathan Jones, CBS Sports AQ, reports on the Bengals, so, well, they don't guarantee money past year one. Well, there's good franchises who financially take care of their players who also don't pay money past the first year. Cincinnati's problem, or one of their problems, is they wait forever to pay their players. You want to know how you keep your cap in check and how you keep your money lined up? You want to know you keep your bread in order? You pay your players early. The players like Jamar Chase, who you know you're going to pay from the jump, from the get-go. Like T. Higgins. If the Bengals end up giving him a contract, which I'm still skeptical of, if you were always planning on giving T. Higgins a contract, and that's been the messaging from Cincinnati, you should have done it already. Dallas, why did you wait so long to sign Dak? Why did you wait so long to sign CeeDee Lamb? Because both of those two players have now been restructured this offseason. They restructured Dak and they restructured CeeDee Lamb, which wouldn't have been necessary at all had they just signed Dak earlier, signed CeeDee Lamb earlier. Again, if the teams aren't sure, and I don't know if we want to pay him, okay, well then wait. But if you're always going to pay Dak, and it became abundantly clear that they were, and if you're always going to pay CeeDee Lamb, and it became clear that they were, then why wait? Because you can do it early, which is going to save you money. Not only in the long run, you're going to save money, but it'll also allow you to manage the money and move the monies around in a way that keeps your cap of it. Like last offseason, the Cowboys kept crying poor because, well, the salary cap, well, money, we have no money. We can't go out and get a running back. We can't be in on this guy or that guy because we don't have any money. Well, if you had signed CeeDee Lamb and Dak early, then you would have had the money. And now the Cowboys have re-signed those two guys, which puts them in the exact same spot they would have been in had they just done this a year ago, except they would have had the money and the financial flexibility last offseason to, have a running game. You know what I mean? So I don't think the Bengals' issue is, well, they don't guarantee money past the first year. There's plenty of good franchises that do that. But you can't wait to pay your guys because then it's only going to start costing more and more and more. And also, the longer you let contracts play out or if you let contracts go to completion, you have less flexibility on how to maneuver the money. If you pay players early, then you have all sorts of control on, because it's a fresh contract that we're drawing up, so we can do it however we want. We can set this up however we want, which is not the case if you wait another year or two to you're kind of stuck in the back end of that contract paying the terms that have been dictated. So it's just such a red flag for me when teams forget not wanting to spend. It's about when you spend as well. And it's all too often these dysfunctional, poorly run teams that cry poor or that say we can't do this, that, the other thing. Yes, you can. You have $400 million some dollars that come in just for existing because your games are on TV. You got plenty of money. Sign your players early. And we see the Packers do that all the time. In fact, I think they're going to do that this offseason, probably with Zach Tom. And it's going to allow them to create even more cap space, more than they have right now. And I think I saw Ken Ingalls today tweeted out a number. Maybe I'll try to find it over the break, but I think it's like $40-something. Yeah, he tweeted and I bookmarked it. Good job, Grant. Good work. He said, after counting all recent signings, the Packers have roughly 24 to 28, not 40, but 24 to $28 million of cap space to throw around in free agency once all the dust settles. They can afford to sign anyone they want, and they can easily create more space by releasing and restructuring existing contracts. Zach Tom, we're going to sign you to an extension. We're going to front load it to hell so you get all this cash in hand that's not going to hit the cap until later on down the line, and that clears up space here and now. It's controllable. It's manageable. Bad teams don't do that. We can continue the Wisco Sports Show next. Free phones Friday, 608-321-1670. I have some basketball sound that I want to play as well.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
There's a number of teams that are going to want a pass rusher of his caliber. I think that you noted that, and just like what we saw in the Super Bowl, there are so many teams that are going to be building in the trenches, offensive line and defensive line. A couple of teams that come to mind immediately, obviously the Washington Commanders, obviously the Arizona Cardinals with money to spend, certainly the Carolina Panthers now looking to build defensively. You look at an Atlanta Falcons team that has been trying to figure out its pass rush production from the last couple of years. The list really goes on. If you're in the bottom half of the NFL in terms of sack production, if you were a team that maybe is losing a blue chip pass rusher and want to hang on in that championship window for someone, the Buffalo Bills, for example, we could keep going on and on. It's ultimately going to be who is going to be willing to give to the Cincinnati Bengals a high 3 or a low 2.
So everyone should be interested or would be interested in Trey Hendrickson. Teams that are trying to get over the top, like the Chiefs or the Bills or the Ravens or the Rams, or teams that are building and trying to grow. The Panthers. The Panthers are this intriguing, lurking little option. And I'm not here to tell you that they're like the next powerhouse of the NFC, but the South remains uber winnable, especially if you don't think the world of Michael Penix. I suppose how you feel about Michael Penix would probably dictate your opinion of the NFC South this coming year and in years to come. But I don't think the Saints are a serious threat because they're such a mess financially and with their roster. I think they're stuck. And they're stuck in a place it's going to take them some time to get out of. The Bucs, I really respect the Bucs. I think that's a real team, but Godwin's injury and now Mike Evans is a year older. So I respect the Buccaneers. I respect Wood. But I wonder if a team like Carolina, who DK Metcalf is reportedly in on, Mike Garafolo, and I can play you the audio. I am just loaded with good audio today. Garafolo was on, not Good Morning Football this morning, but he's on NFL Network. He was on a station in Charlotte this morning, Puck Sports, apparently. I reached out to NFL Network. It's like, well, Bill's show's bigger than whatever this outfit is down in Carolina. They didn't get back to me. Whatever. It's Friday. I maintained a positive attitude throughout. Here's Garafolo. This is in Charlotte this morning on Puck Sports. Actually, lie. In Seattle. He's talking to a Seattle outlet. The truth is still the same. Bill's show's still bigger.
What do you have the name of?
Not that helped.
What do you have the?
Whatever. I'm not holding a grudge.
What do you have the name of teams that would be interested in DK? Specific teams that are interested in him.
Yeah, there's no question Pete Carroll's interested. No doubt. And I heard that at the combine, that he had let it be known that he would be interested if he was available. So the Raiders are 1,000,000% in the running here. That's one of them. You've got history in Carolina with both the general manager and the head coach. So would not surprise me at all. I know people are talking about the Packers as well. I'm sure that there's interest there as well. So those are the three teams just off the top of my head and just off the basically what I've heard now in the last couple of days that I would put in the mix.
Charlotte's interesting. I know their owner's kind of a dink and nobody likes him, but they found something down the stretch last year. If they start 3-1 next year, it's going to kind of feel like, all right, they've taken a step. That's a legit team. It's a place that people like to live. A lot of these guys are from the South. You know what I mean? Warm weather. I don't know what the tax situation is like. I would imagine South Carolina is a red-leaning state, so I would imagine it's preferable to other places in the country. It's not a political statement. It's just a fact. Calm down. But what if a team like Carolina were to put a hard push on to get DK Metcalf, some familiarity there with head coach and general manager, and then, they could go about maybe Trey Hendrickson wants to come down here because they got all the money, right? It's whether or not they're willing to part with the draft picks. But I got to think now with Love Young. I always think Bryce Young going into year 3. It's like, all right, if this is going to work and we're going to contend and compete with this guy, it's got to start pretty soon because at some point we're going to have to pay this kid. Canales now in year 2. Things have kind of evened out a little bit. That's an intriguing offseason spot. Not telling you they're going to contend for a Super Bowl next year, but in the context of offseason moves and transactions and trades and free agent signings, I think that's a destination that remains interesting. And I know the owner's a dink, but do players have to interact with him on a day-to-day basis? If he's cutting checks and for the most part staying out of the way, I don't think a lot of players would be turned off by that, especially if the check is clearing. Like if you're giving me $30 million a year, it's warm. It's at least a functional outfit. I don't know. DK Metcalf will go there. Garofalo had him linked. So I think just about anybody should be interested in Trey Hendrickson. If you're trying to legitimize your team, if you're trying to get over the top after being a contender that's come up short, like there's a million different reasons for a million different teams to go after Trey Hendrickson. And of course, the team trading the player away is Cincinnati because Cincinnati's a joke and they don't invest in their players. And we talked about this last segment. 608-321-1670. I actually want to take this break just a little bit early. When we come back, I have some basketball audio that I want to play. I have some NBA audio and I have some college basketball audio. I want to start with something that Tom Izzo said last night after their game against Iowa. That fascinates me. And I saw Vagabond John tweeting about it last night. I'm like, yep, I will clip that. We are discussing tomorrow. Thank you very much. We'll pick this show up in just a couple minutes. Phone lines are wide open. So if you want to jump in, you won't have to wait. I promise. We'll get you right on the other side. 608-321-1670.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 5 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 4 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Wisco Sports Show fins up. It's Friday. I have a comment from Tom Izzo that I'm really, really excited to play and react to. I also have a bit of audio from Brian Windhorst's podcast that confuses the snot out of me. So we're going to get to that in just a couple minutes. But first, it's a Free Phones Friday. Got a couple callers on hold, so I don't want to make you wait. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Greetings and salutations from your old stomping grounds on the west coast of Wisco, Father Grant.
What's going on, Rico? How you been?
I'm doing okay, but I just called to ask you a question.
Okay.
I want your thoughts on the great chicken nugget battle between Spooner and Hayward.
Has there been a new development in this? There's been a Cold War for a long time. What happened?
I'm just asking you, like, apparently Spooner ate, like, they called ahead, thankfully, because it's a person who used to work in fast food. They called ahead, thankfully, but apparently Spooner ate 3,100 and some odd nuggets, and then Hayward a couple days later ate over 4,000. So, I'm just curious about what your thoughts are on that.
Like at a McDonald's, or I need just a couple more details. Okay, so was it a bus of kids on a sports team, or did Spooner just send a bunch of buses to Hayward to clean up their McDonald's just to piss them off?
I like I said, they called ahead. Apparently, the Spooner kids went first and ate over 3,000 chicken nuggets. And then the Hayward kids turned around in a couple of days or a week later, ate over 4,000. So, and it just and the battle goes on.
Look, here's what I'll say about this long-lasting war. Rico, that's a great call. Appreciate it. Excited to see you in April. We do some live shows up in La Crosse, over in La Crosse, up in La Crosse. It's not up north, over in La Crosse. I want to see both sides of this battle. But if politics have taught us anything over the last 10 years, it's that nicknames and easy turns of phrase stick. So Hayward won this thing a long time ago because Spooner blows it's a war cry that's never going to go away. Spooner blows, Spooner blows, fits on a bridge. Spooner blows. So sorry, I have to take Hayward's side. And it's just because of that phrase and for no other reason. So now I need to look into this chicken nugget battle though. 608-321-1670 Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
This is John in Cornell.
Hey, have you heard anything about this chicken? Has it made down to Cornell, or has it stayed up above?
I haven't heard anything. I have no comment on it.
Okay, hasn't made it down to 64. Okay, that's fine. What is your comment? What is your topic, John?
Okay, my question is this. So there's been all this talk about the Packers trading for DK Metcalf. Two questions. My first for you is would DK Metcalf be a significant upgrade to Dontavian Wicks?
But I don't think I think the way we should look at it is he a significant upgrade over Watson? Because that's the role that he's going to play. And I enthusiastically say yes. Even if Christian Watson would be healthy, he would be, and he's not healthy. So it's a slam dunk on top of a slam dunk of an upgrade.
Okay, okay, right. So you said that yesterday, right? The comparison to Christian Watson. You're right. So my question then is, would you trade for him? Would you do a deal to get him no matter what? Because he would be that pivotal change to put the Packers in the postseason and be a game-changing player?
I don't think they're a DK Metcalf away from winning the Super Bowl. I think they need improvement along the defensive line, and they need Reed and Wicks to get better. I do think DK Metcalf would be an excellent piece that would help them improve. But no, you have to have a walk-away point. And Goody's talked about that. Like, I'm not giving him a first this year and a player and a first next. Like, I'm not doing it at any cost. But
has there been any changes to the deal or no?
No, the last I heard was Seattle wants, I think, a second and a fourth and a player for DK Metcalf and a fifth. And I don't think they're going to get that.
Is he worth that?
I don't think so.
Okay. All right. That's all I got to say.
God bless, John. Thank you for listening up at Cornell. What he's worth and what he's going to get are two different things. I don't think they're wildly different things, but they are different things. I don't think DK Metcalf is the piece that puts them over the top. I think he's a good piece, make them a lot better. They need some other things to happen. But if you think you're, if you think you're a Jose Quintana away, well, then you trade Eloy Jimenez and whoever else the F they traded. Then you do it. But if it's just, hey, this would be a really nice piece, we'd love to bring him in, well, you have to have a walk-away point. So, yeah, I think he'd be a great player, be an upgrade over what they have, and I would really like to see the Packers do it. But, of course, I have a walk-away point. Now, I think there are points where teams don't. You know what I mean? Like, we need this player. We think he can win us a championship, so we're going to pay plus, a little extra. I don't think the Packers are in a position to do that with DK Metcalf. Although, you got to remember, like, good players are going to fetch a good return. So, you're not going to get them for free, Packers fans. It's not how it works. So, it's going to hurt a little bit. I don't know that it'll take a second and a fourth and Dontavian Wicks. Seems a little bit much, but it'll take something. It'll take a package of great quality because DK Metcalf is a good wide receiver. He's not Jamar Chase, but that's why he's not going to make Jamar Chase money. That's why he's going to make $30 million instead of 35 or 36. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Eric on I-90.
Good evening, Eric. Happy Friday. Fins up.
Happy Friday. Fins up. Fins up. And it's a happier Friday than most.
Why is that?
I'm going on a week and a half vacation.
Oh.
Week and a half vacation.
You going snowmobiling?
No. Florida now. Florida's where we're going now.
Oh, that's exciting. Flying or driving?
Yes. Driving.
I would have guessed that. God, I would have guessed that. Panhandle or Gulf or Southern Tip?
Tampa area.
Is that like halfway down? Where's Tampa?
Tampa's about halfway down.
Was that like 22 hours? 22 hours? 21 hours?
2-day trip. We stay in Birmingham.
Okay.
First night, and then I don't know if I know enough about this DJ Metcalf trade.
Okay.
I don't know. I've only listened to every possible scenario. I feel like that wizard on the Avengers that went through every possible scenario that could possibly happen. And I don't really know much about this Metcalf. He's got to be good. What do we know about him now? So people can make a good decision. I know he's their number one wide receiver, but that's kind of relative, right? It's relative to the team you're playing on.
Yep, and it's relative to the position you play. Like, I think their best wide receivers probably Jackson Smith and Jigba, but he's more of an undersized slot guy. And there's a lot of franchises, and I think the Packers feel this way, like the big-bodied boundary wide receiver is paramount, right? Like, we can't, the tip of the spear can't be a slot wide receiver.
No, he can't. Unless you're Jordan Adams.
Yeah. But Jordan Addison, and I feel the same way about Jaden Reed. Those guys are smaller and play in the slot, but they can get downfield and make big plays. They play a little bit bigger than their size.
They do. And I don't know about Wicks. I think somebody said that Wicks catches less than 50% of the balls thrown his way.
Well, when you put it that way, yeah, that doesn't sound great, but that's just one way to frame it. He's open a lot, which means the ball comes his way despite him not being a trustworthy target. So what does that say about his ability to get open, huh?
That does, but I don't know, Grant. I'm a fan of the fan. I love listening. I got no news out of the Viking camp. No news. It's dead silent.
It's not the worst place to be in. I haven't heard anything. Have a great vacation, Eric. I haven't heard anything about quarterback. They're not going to tag. We learned that they're not going to tag Darnold, but they want to keep him around on some level, or at least that's what they're saying. 608-321-1670. Travel safe, Eric. All right. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Hey, Grant, it's Ed calling 2 days in a row.
Wow, no kidding. What a treat. What's up, Ed?
Well, hey, I know I kind of stated the obvious yesterday how I think Gutekunst he would be brain dead to have to not fill the needs, but to give up draft picks, that's just not our niche. We never give up draft picks for one injury away from losing a player or an injury, like paying that much for one player. I don't see it happening. I think we got to put all our ducks in a row for Devontae Adams, and I said it yesterday, Khalil Mack. I think you got to go at this a little bit more, less aggressive than a lot of the other fans want.
Sure.
I'm not ready for DK Metcalf to come here, and then all of a sudden he's one injury away. Look how many injuries we had last year in wide receiver. Watson, Dobbs. It's just too risky.
I mean, look, I think they're going to have, and I got to move because I'm starting to run out of time. We're starting to get close to 6:00, Ed. So I'm going to let you go and take one more call. Yeah, it's risky. Yep. It's a salary cap sport. There's no team that's like, hey, we have extra corners and extra edge rushers and extra wide receivers, and we feel great about our running back depth, and we love our backup quarterback. Like, that team doesn't exist. You're going to have to get some luck somewhere. The Packers are going to have to draft a wide receiver, at least one, to fill in the depth. But if you go into the season, say, with DK Metcalf, Jaden Reed, Dontavian Wicks, Tucker Kraft, and a draft pick, and then Bo Melton's going to be back. And I'm not saying Bo Melton's a superstar, but he's played football games. Like, he's not a complete and total slap if that's your depth. Like, that's as good as most teams have. And it's probably still not enough, but no one has enough in the NFL because it's a salary cap sport and rosters are small. Like, it's just the way that it works. 608-321-1670. One more call. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Ridge Runner Mark, how are we doing?
Hey, Ridge Runner, what's up?
I just realized, I think what I would like to see happen is let's not trade for a wide receiver. Let's go after a free agent. Let's go after Devontae. He's a known quantity, and use that first-round draft pick to pick the best player between wide receiver and defensive player. And then if we can use, and also free agent grab a lineman, a defensive lineman who's going to, put us over the edge. I would like to see that rather than trade and give away picks, because Goody likes to have picks to kind of maneuver and get players and draft and develop.
Mm-hmm.
Because we don't know. Yeah, we've got 2 years, 3 years, I think, under our belt with some of these wide receivers. We don't know that they're not just going to flip them and everything's going to fall into place. We also know that Love was injured and his accuracy was off for most of the year, if not a lot of the year, because of his injury. Lower leg affects his accuracy. So,
yeah.
How many years before Devontae really took off? Was it year 3 or 4?
It was year 3 or 4. I'm not telling you that Dontavian Wicks is going to turn into Devontae Adams. I just think he's got a lot of good traits, and he's still only, coming now into year 3. Romeo Dobbs is coming into year 4, right? Like, I just want the younger guy. I want the guy with more room to grow.
Right. Exactly. Right. And I think if we bring in Devontae Adams, like I know you spoke to before, he's that veteran guy. He knows the offense, so there's going to be no learning curve, really. All he's got to learn is Jordan Love tendencies, and he can help him grow as well. And I think it's almost like it's fated, but it's just a matter of if he wants to come back and how that's going to look. And I know I tend to look at things with rose-colored glasses. I always think positively, whatever. But I just think that's the route to try and put all your eggs in that one basket. And if it doesn't work out, okay. But he'd be the top of my list of free agents to try to go after besides who's the other guy the other defensive guy that's seeking a trade. That's a trade again.
Myles Garrett or Trey Hendrickson?
Yeah, Trey Hendrickson probably more so than Myles Garrett, because it sounds like the Browns absolute dinguses and don't want to trade him.
The Browns are kind of all over the place on this. All right, Ridge Runner, I got to run because I want some time in the last segment to play a couple basketball clips that I keep teasing, and I need to get to it. Otherwise, I'm a hack and a fraud. The Browns say we won't trade him, but then Myles Garrett wants to sit down with the owner, and the owner's like, no, screw you. Okay, well, if you want to retain your star, then meet with him. Show him some respect. If the plan is to keep him around and to bring him back, don't stiff him, because that's going to make him want to leave even more. So, Myles Garrett seems like a little bit of a pie in the sky trade for everybody, not just for the Packers. But Trey Hendrickson for a late second or an early third, I think you can make that happen. All right, let's take a break. We'll come back, listen to some Jimmy Buffett. I have 2 basketball clips that I think are absolutely fascinating. We'll wrap up the show with that.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Not only going out to Wisconsin and the great Midwest, we're going around the world tonight, Parrot Head.
Final segment of the Wisco Sports Show. Fins up. It's Friday. I have 2 basketball cuts. And sometimes as a radio producer, because I produce Bill, so I'll see clips or I'll see interviews on Twitter and I'll be like, that's amazing sound. I'm going to cut it. I'm going to clip it. And I have these 2 cuts that are basketball related that I don't really like. I'm not going to build a big segment around them. I just thought they were really interesting. So we're going to wrap up the show with this. This is Tom Izzo last night after Michigan State beat Iowa. And they were asking him about Iowa and the future of Fran McCaffrey and what he thought about it. And Izzo, this is about a minute long. This is fascinating.
You know, you get lucky and unlucky. I mean, I just went through a 3-year period where everybody wants to ship me out. I mean, it's just the way it is. You know, they don't have the resources here. I'm going to say what I think. This ain't what Fran thinks. I mean, everybody has different amounts of resources. They're not on the middle or high end. And people, I mean, I love Fran. You know, I think what he's gone through here with his own kids and everything, watch what you wish for. I've seen this happen in a couple of football programs close to us. And, people
listen to that. If you had been lulled into complacency by the hum in the room, I like the white noise too. Listen to that part one more time.
Watch what you wish for. I've seen this happen in a couple of football programs close to us, and people better appreciate, you know, it's easy to throw stones. Everybody says, well, we're paying guys money now, so you should be able to win. Well, don't you think the rest of us are paying money? No different.
Do you guys not find that fascinating? That Izzo in a basketball conversation said, oh, I've seen it happen to football programs close to us. Be careful what you wish for.
Watch what you wish for. I've seen this happen in a couple of football programs close to us, and people better appreciate. It's easy to throw stones. Everybody says, well, we're paying guys money now, so you should be able to win. Well, don't you think the rest of us are paying money? No different.
Isn't that it? I mean, he's got to be talking about Wisconsin. How could he be talking about anyone other than Wisconsin? And maybe Nebraska, but Nebraska was the cautionary tale for Wisconsin when they fired Christ. I like Izzo. Very interesting. And with a conversation like that, he's gonna make me like Fran. This is messed up. I like Guard, okay? He, by extension, makes me like Izzo. Then he talks about Matt Painter, and he's gonna make me like Matt Painter. Now, because I like Izzo because of Guard, now I'm going to have to like Fran McCaffrey by extension. This is like different levels of separation. Vagabond John says, he has to be referencing Wisconsin on the live stream. No other program makes sense. By the way, if you're watching on the live stream, you just saw me on my phone. I'm in a stupid ass argument in a group chat with my friends, and I couldn't put it down. So my apologies. Here's one more piece of audio. This triggered me. Oh, Grant's triggered. Yeah, this annoyed me. This frustrated me. This is I don't know what podcast this is technically. Let me go try to find this. But it's Brian Windhorst and Tim Bontemps and the guy who covers the map. What's his name? The guy with the Southern accent. Whatever. They're talking about what's recently happened in the NBA and the Bucks and their trade deadline moves, including Kevin Porter Jr. come up. So you're going to hear Brian Windhorst kind of set this up. It's only about 30 seconds.
But I will point out Kevin Porter Jr., which was one of those deals.
Kevin Porter Jr. ain't going to be doing a damn thing in the playoffs.
Well, first off,
say that right now. You just that ain't that. We can't be coming here with like, hey, we got Kevin Porter Jr. playing minutes right now. Like, come on.
The guy's a decent little bench bucket getter.
Come on.
Well, I'm talking about the acquisition at the trade deadline. I mean, he had a triple double.
Do you hear that right there? Wendy's like, what? I mean, Tim Bontemps out of nowhere is like, well, he's not going to do a damn thing in the playoffs. Listen to this one more time.
Which was one of those deals.
Kevin Porter Jr. ain't going to be doing a damn thing in the playoffs.
Well, first off,
do you hear that pause?
Well, first off,
that right now.
This is why the NBA it's one of the reasons that I think the NBA wears on people is the people who cover it just find reasons to dump on everyone. This doesn't happen in other leagues. This doesn't happen in other leagues when a player gets traded and he's playing well and an analyst is like, yeah, he's playing pretty well last couple weeks. No one comes in from the top rope uninvited. It was like, he's not going to do anything in the playoffs, so. It's like, what the? Little breaking news to wrap up the show. This is good stuff. The Raiders have acquired Geno Smith. Yeah, Seattle traded Geno Smith to the Raiders, reuniting him with head coach Pete Carroll, according to Ian Rappaport and Tom Pelissero, for a 2025 third-round pick. Fascinating. Does that make it more or less likely that DK Metcalf accompanies him? Interesting. And now what does Seattle do? So I was telling you earlier in the week, Seattle does not seem like a team that wants to bottom out and rebuild. Maybe this is a signal that they do want to bottom. Maybe they feel that that's their best option right now. I would still kind of doubt it, knowing John Schneider, very Packers-ish again. Do you know the Packers to be a team that wants to bottom out and start from scratch? Mm-mm. Yeah, Tom Pelissero, the Seahawks are trading two-time Pro Bowl. I don't care. I don't care about the Pro Bowls. They're trading Geno Smith to the Raiders for a 2025 first-round pick. Sources tell the insiders it's a reunion for Pete Carroll and Smith, who is also expected to get a new contract, and Seattle will need a new quarterback. Fascinating. We'll soak on that over the weekend. Soak's probably a bad word, especially when we're describing state of Nevada or Utah. Simmer with that. Consider that over the weekend. Maybe we'll pick that up on Monday, or maybe this move leads to another one. Maybe it begets something related to DK Metcalf. We'll probably pick that up on Monday. Enjoy the Badger game tomorrow. I was going to go, but tickets are, good God, not made of money. We'll talk about the Badgers' end of the season. We'll be looking forward to Selection Sunday, all that. I'll talk to you on Monday at 4. Have a great weekend.
What can we say? Thank you all very much. You sure make a boy from Mississippi feel right at home in Wisconsin. Thank you all.